The banking system, or the banksters or gangsters or whatever you want to call them, have collectively, through thousands of years, have set up a situation where they can manipulate people to superimpose a legal system that is not based entirely on law, it's based on commerce. And as we'll get into it, I'll explain that we are not operating in a common law system anymore, although the common law is still here and we need to understand how to access it and how to use it to our advantage. But most people, unfortunately, are so ignorant of what the law is or what the codes are or what the statutes actually say and how they particularly apply to them. They just are used to functioning in a consensus reality that, oh, well, you know, at 18 or 16, everyone gets a driver's license, and, you know, when I work, everyone fills out a 1040 IRS tax form, or because he said, or because your parents said, or because your parents were particularly indoctrinated in a system where everyone is functioning perpetually in this let's pretend game. The whole system is set up about one thing: money, because the banks, through their politicians and legislational system, they set up a body of laws to further extract money, or set up a system that money is always flowing up. It's being extracted out of your bodies, out of your sweat equity, out of your labor. So the whole thing is based about one thing: commerce. And the system that we operate, if you understand Admiralty, it's a very esoteric system, because the banking has been operating longer than 6,000 years, probably longer than recorded history, longer than the Code of Hammurabi, etc. But the mother is a vessel, or all of us are vessels, because our bodies are a warehouse, and you live within the confines of your skin if you take the concept that you're a spiritual being. Okay, so it's an energy vessel. So the mother is a vessel delivering a product, swimming down the rivers of the birth canal, and you know, it's delivered to the dock, or the dock door. And what is it? It's delivery of a human resource, because that's all we're considered. And we're talking about money. You're a human resource. So what is money? It's energy. That's all it is. The system is set up that it's the control and flow of energy from generally the bottom up, the basis of the foundation of the people, up into the hands of the bankers that further perpetuate and dictate more laws to further extract money. And we'll demonstrate this in just a moment. So a battery is pretty much what we're considered. If anyone has seen The Matrix, you know, our bodies are our vessel. It's where we store the energy. We eat food, its energy is transmuted from the sun, it goes up the food chain if you study biology, and the energy is stored in our fat cells. Well, take a look at this. The nursery, in essence, if we're talking to the world of Admiralty and the ship pulling into the dock and getting the port, coming into port, and we're getting all this paperwork, and it's all about money, the nursery is an energy farm or a monetary farm. It's a production house, kind of like the Matrix. You know, so we're going to go into some definitions from the Law Dictionary, what these terms mean. And I'm not making any of this up. If you look in Ballantines Law Dictionary, a human being is a monster. So that's what, you know, when you walk into court, this is how they're looking at you. Let's take a look at what monster says. A monster is a human being by birth, but in some part resembling a lower animal. A monster hath no inherent blood, and cannot be the heir to any land, albeit it be brought forth in marriage. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a human being, which is in the law of Admiralty or the law of banking? We're talking about a let's pretend game. This guy, it's on a piece of paper only. That's the certificate of live birth. That's the B/6. That's the let's pretend game. The construct that is law has two kinds of people. You know, in fact, the spiritual being isn't it. You won't find a spiritual being in the Law Dictionary, but you'll find the definition of a person. But peculiar enough, the definition of a person, they try to get you caught up with a natural person. But how do you define a word with its own word? That's a peculiarity in itself. So person includes a natural person, a firm, a co-partnership, or an association, or a limited liability company or corporation. The entire essence of the let's pretend game is to get you to be one of these things: a corporation functioning in a state of fascism, in a limited liability world, a let's pretend game, where no one takes responsibility for their actions. So we get into the construct of what the physical world versus the legal world is. You have the world of land, which they try to superimpose this matrix body over, of the world of Admiralty. In the Constitution, which is predicated upon common law, we deal in the world of gold and silver. What happened to that, guys? You know, now we're dealing with Federal Reserve notes, which a note, by definition, is evidence of a debt. And anyone heard of national debt? Or how about income tax? You know, all income tax does is go to pay national debt. It doesn't pay the streets. It goes to pay the national debt with the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve came into act in 1913. You know, and that's a whole story in itself. And the taxes that are generated as a result of using Federal Reserve notes, who collects that? The IRS. When were they started? The same year as the Federal Reserve, 1913. But guess where the IRS is based out of, guys? Puerto Rico. It's not even an agency of the United States government. You know, that's a whole story in itself. So all money in society nowadays is generated as a result of your potential and what you put into the system. Because Federal Reserve notes, they have no value whatsoever. They're backed entirely on the full faith and credit of the U.S. population. So without you backing these things up, they have no value at all. So in order for you to use this money in society, you have to get up and work every day and put something into the system. And what you reap, you'll sow. The system cannot perpetuate itself without you. So what is the vehicle that is the courthouse? These entities or institutions or systems are the primary method or modality, or one of the primary methods or modalities by which your sweat equity is extracted out of you on a consistent basis. Traffic tickets and parking tickets are the #1 generators of indirect taxation or revenue in the state of California. Period. If you look at the numbers, you will be appalled. So check this out. You have a courthouse, Masonic Lodge. Looks kind of similar, right? Courthouse, Masonic Lodge. You have a courthouse, and you have a Masonic Lodge. Okay, you have a judge, and you have his gavel, right? What is this? A Masonic gavel. So what I'm trying to say, and I'm not going to get into a big Masonic presentation here, I'm just setting you up or to inspire you all to do a little investigation as to what the system that we're operating under today is founded upon. Who were the founders? Who were the founding fathers really? Were they a great bunch of guys, as we were told in our history classes? Or was there a greater plan? Was there a grand dynamic? The great work? What were they aiming to achieve? And if you do a little investigation, you'll find out that it's about one thing: business. But where does all the money go? Marvin Breyer. And that's the man that found out. Marvin Breyer is an I don't want to say Bank of America employee, but he worked for one of their subsidiaries. And he's a COBOL programmer. And he's the guy that designed the foundational computer systems, or the code that transfers all money and et cetera, and balances the books at the end of each day. So what Marvin did is he did a little homework. He tracked the money that was being raised from the court, and where all the funds and all the money that he was paying into the court system for fines or just court docket filings, all going into slush funds, guys, without exception. If you track the funds that are paid to the court, the funds are going into different accounts as opposed to where they're mandated by legislature. Instead, they go into private accounts associated with the Judges Association. However, it's really interesting about what the Judges Associations are. And you can look at any court system in America, namely, we like to particularly look at Los Angeles because a lot of us are originally from there, done a lot of investigation over there. But the Judges Association, if you talk to them, try to find out who they are, they're allegedly a tax-exempt organization. However, they're not registered at all with the IRS, period. They fall under a 508 category. The IRS turns a complete blind eye to the fact that they haven't properly registered, but they're amassing tons of these funds, okay? So, but you'll find out why. You go to tax court, or you go to court based on willful failure to file, or you're not paying your fair share, etc. Why you bring in proper legal arguments or issues as a matter of law, and they throw you into the wood chipper. Why? Because they're all working in harmony together, in concert. Okay, so the Judges Association, what do these guys do? They raise bonds. They create debt without taxpayer approval. So the money that is paid to the Judges Association is used to pay off anonymous bonds. Okay? The anonymous bonds are issued through Merrill Lynch and other associations. And we have paperwork that demonstrates this. Marvin got a judge thrown in jail and some prosecuting attorneys, and there's more on the way. Because, you know, you ever heard of judicial immunity? You don't sue the judge, you sue his association. Or you find the evidence of the wrongdoing through Public Records Act request, or you trace the money on the check, and then you present the data to the grand jury, and they got to investigate it, and then they got a problem. So as a result, Credit Suisse and Bank of America are the primary underwriters on those bonds. And a company by the name of DTC, Department of Trust Corporation, controls the bonds. But guess what? DTC is ran by the Federal Reserve board members. If you take a look at who's on the payroll, it's all a complex matrix. And how do they want you to pay? You're not using gold or silver to pay at the courts. I tried to pay them. They don't take the stuff. I tried to use all kinds of stuff at the courts, guys, but they want that Federal Reserve note product, a private product that's, set up under a sham situation, 1913, set up the same time as the IRS, 1913, and there's some other agencies which I won't mention that were set up in 1913 too, which is a little kooky.